Good morning to everyone. Again, it's always a pleasure and a experience to come together as a body and a group. I think all y'all know me by now. I'm like, I can be hyped, not as hyped as Robert, but I can get hyped sometimes, when just to keep things going and moving and keep it lively. So we welcome you to our Economic Development Authority meeting of the City of Portsmouth. And at this time, I call this meeting to order officially, and roll call.
Yes, sir. Good morning, everyone. Mr. Barber.
I'm here.
Ms. Drury.
Here.
Mr. Mitchell.
Here.
Mr. Brown.
Here.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Here.
Mrs. Smith. And Chairman Smith.
Here.
We have a quorum, sir.
Okay, and Mrs. Barbara Smith is out of, I think when her text said she was out of the country, so I think she'll be back on Thursday. So when you heard her name called for an appointment, I did speak to her about it, so don't wonder, well, does she know? Thank you. We'll call for minutes. If there are any questions or any corrections, I'll entertain a motion.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any discussion of the motion? All right. Mr. Barber.
Aye.
Ms. Drury.
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell.
Yes.
Mr. Brown.
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith.
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Here. Yes.
Yes. Motion carries. Motion carries.
Okay, and we'll continue on as our normal cases with Mr. Moore.
All right.
Walking us through the agenda.
All right. Thank you, Chair. The next item on the agenda is a financial update from Ms. Patty Phillips.
We've got up on the screen the unaudited statement of net position. Month of July, you'll see that you still have your $250,000 at Atlantic Union, that's restricted cash, and then also your cash at Town Bank of $1,448,038. If you scroll on down, lease income, $187,500, that's a receivable unpaid lease, which I think is mostly for the Renaissance, if not all. Other assets, property held for resale, you notice that was reduced by $739 to reflect the sale of the 3345 Victory Boulevard. And scrolling on down, there's not a whole lot of change going on. There's a little interest that was accrued at the end of June that's not been accrued in July, and unrestricted net position of $12,970,431 at July 31st. The next chart is the statement of revenues and expenses and change the net position, which in the old days was called the income statement. And you'll notice the sale of land, which was again that Victor Boulevard property, the sale of $1,037,500, and your cost of sales is the cost of the land and then other selling expenses of $803,130. So a gain on that sale of $234,370. Rental income was accrued. So total operating revenues of $249. If you scroll on down, you have not spent a whole lot of money this month. It's just 1 month early in the fiscal year. I think some minor contractual services, development grants, scroll on down, and a little accrued interest. So change in that position of increase of $197,617. And let's go on to the next chart. This is a listing of all the property owned by the EDA. I'm not going to go over each property, just so you know we have the inventory. You go on down, please, to the next chart. Keep on going to the next one. This is a little chart that I've added that just shows your sales for the fiscal year to date, just so that, so each month we'll see that change hopefully. Going to the next chart, which I believe is the budget to the actual. And I'm not going to highlight too much of that. You did have the sale of the Victory Boulevard property, which wasn't anticipated in your budget, which is a good thing. And some minor expenses. You'll see the cost of land. Those are the selling expenses. You've got some downtown business development grants. In other words, you've only spent about 1% of your expenditure budget, so I'm not going to go into detail on that unless you have questions. And I think that is a summary of what's in your package. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to try to address them.
Let me, could you go all the way back up to where it said the first item, the 250,000 from the restricted money?
Yes.
Just update us on that because I'm pretty sure
Okay, let me
that's
see if I can
that's
remember which
the-
property that was.
fairly.
Yeah,
Right,
the,
right.
North Pier.
Exactly, and that's what I know, but I want to make sure everybody know that that's what where that's from.
Yes.
From the sale of the
Yeah.
North Pier.
If you scroll on down into the net position section, you'll see that I reserved out that amount of money out of your unrestricted retained earnings. And we've got North Pier identified there. But
Right,
I'll go ahead and identify it up front.
right.
Is there a timeline for that?
Not that I know of.
We don't have specifically a timeline. As we start to look at upgrades and needs from a budgeting standpoint, as far as the city is concerned, with regards to the Atlantic Union Pavilion, I think hopefully we'll have a clearer picture.
Okay.
But as of right now, that's just set aside in case changes are needed, as you all agree.
Mhm.
And the information I have is until 2025.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
I don't know, Jeff kind of told me that, so that's what I know.
And some of that originated from the possibility of the VIP area being moved or done away with. And so that's why it's yet to be determined how it's going to be used. Okay, thank you.
All right, next item is old business. And first on old business is a good transition to the Financial Services Ad Hoc Committee. That committee again was established as Ms. Drury as the treasurer and Mr. Brown as the individual assisting her in that, or assisting that group. We have not met as of yet, just a quick update. We staff have not met with this group yet. I think they were doing some additional background work and looking at some different banks and things. What I will say is, in talking to finance, we believe we do have some opportunities. So we look forward to speaking to the group and having some discussions about what we think may be the most feasible way to earn the most on our money and be most fiscally responsible at the same time. All right. Okay. Any questions on that before I go forward? All right, and we'll have Ms. Angela Shepherd reach out to you all to get the meeting set up here soon. Reminder, EDA retreat is your next meeting. Following your next meeting, September 21st, we will attempt to make your actual meeting, keep it at about 45 minutes. Again, I said attempt, but your retreat is scheduled to be 10 to about 2 o'clock, maybe 3 at the latest. If we go over, we do have a moderator, and the moderator's schedule permits up to 3 o'clock, should that be necessary. So we're excited about that. We're going to put the agenda together. We have a loose agenda now. I think we've asked about this before, but certainly would like for you all to send topics for the retreat that you'd like to talk about. Send those to the vice chair, Malcolm Mitchell, so that we can start finalizing the agenda. We do have 4 speakers scheduled as well. So as we put that agenda together, we'll get that out to you with the list of the names of the speakers and so forth. Any questions?
And just to go a little bit further. We've, and I'm not sure if we've talked with this about with the whole group, but the PPIC's role is going to be, their invitation is going to be more of learning for them, and they will be allowed to participate if they have questions. So we felt that because of the newness of the majority of them, that it would be helpful, for them to be able to ask questions and not just sit there and listen. So that's where we kind of draw the line, making it clear, and our moderator will make it clear in the beginning that, it is technically EDA's meeting, and we normally, don't allow other participants to come in and be able to sit around the table with us and speak, but we are making this exception for them because of our relationship in the past with them and the kinds of things that we do. So just be cognizant of that when the meeting starts, and we'll try to manage that to keep it to a respectable ladder. Our moderator is going to be Delcino Miles, and y'all know her. She's very capable of keeping things in the realm and kicking back when they get out. So we were fortunate to get her to come in and help us. So just get ready to be prepared. Thank you.
Any questions? All right. The next item, certainly the following week, you all will have a joint meeting with the PPIC. So what will happen is the PPIC will have their typical meeting, and then we'll do a roll call for you all to have a joint meeting with them. And I think we're going in a great succession from a standpoint of what we're going to talk about this morning when we get to closed session and your strategic plan, and then going into your retreat, and then having that follow-up, if you will, with the PPIC from a joint meeting standpoint. We have solicited input for discussion items for the joint meeting from PPIC. I would ask the same, and you may have that more once you get through your retreat and so forth. But I would ask again, if you have any items for the joint meeting, that you send those to Vice Chair Mitchell as well. Is that correct, Chair?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any
Always.
questions on that? Okay. Next item or items under old business, project updates. So one thing I will tell you, the theme for the last several months has been dirt is moving in Portsmouth. So we're very excited about some of the updates we have, a number of projects that you all have been a part of in some way, shape, or form. So on High Street, the Hampton Roads Community Health Center has started moving dirt. They have, you will see that out there. They had a silk fence up for a while, but now they are starting to move dirt. 3335, 3345 Victory Boulevard, which is at the corner of Victory and Greenwood. That site, as soon as you closed, the next day, they were moving dirt. And keep in mind that project is a retail project that includes a Riptide car wash, but as well as additional strip center retail, including a financial institution we cannot name as of yet. But we're excited about that change coming to Victory Boulevard. 1200 Court Street, which again, you all know, most people know as the Massimo Zanetti building. We can finally announce that once Massimo Zanetti leaves, we anticipate around the October-November timeframe, that space will be fully leased by Frito-Lay. So we're very excited about a new corporate partner coming into Portsmouth, taking out that entire center. And again, the ongoing discussions about, the adjacent property that you all own. And then finally, super excited. If you haven't been down Victory Boulevard, if for some reason you haven't driven down 264, you will hopefully see or have seen Rivers Casino Portsmouth has begun. The plan is to go vertical starting in October. So they are flying. That land is flat, the trees are down, shouldn't have any more dumping, and very excited about that. I find myself driving out there twice a week as if something different is happening. But no, they are moving very quickly. Yates and SB Ballard, a local contractor, they've been chomping at the bit to get started. I sent you all a link to some press with regards to WBEC and the story that they are doing on the project. At some point, there will be a camera up so you can monitor this anytime you want to online. But you all should be very excited about this. This is certainly a property that you all had for years, sold, got back, and will immediately put back on the tax rolls. And we're hoping to close on that property very soon. So those are just some quick updates, answering questions that you all may have with regards to those. Ms. Terry.
Is 3335 Victory, is that the area across from the 7-Eleven, across from?
Golden
Across
School.
from Golden Skip. Yeah, it
Okay,
used to be the old Earl's Market.
I was wondering what that was turning into.
Yeah, so that's going to be, again, strip retail. There is what automated car wash. That was the first car wash that came into Portsmouth, and that was approved back in 2020. And so that development will mirror what you see in Harborview out on College Drive, where there's a Panera and there's that strip there. That's the vision for that corner there. So, so that is, we're excited about that. And again, including a financial institution. If you go to Harborview, it's like an Aspen Dental, a Mod Pizza, and Langley Federal Credit Union. Very simple.
Just one question. Is it possible for us to develop like a key milestone dates around the casino? I mean, just,
Certainly.
Just so we're all in abreast in terms of what the next step is with the
Certainly.
state and et cetera.
So the next step, and that we can certainly do that, and we will keep you abreast, and so will Rush Street. Rush Street has a newsletter, which I forwarded to you all, and so I'm hoping you all have signed up for that. If not, we will send that out, or I will send that out to you all as an update. But the next step is the licensure. Their application is in. It has been in for about 30 days now. So it's now just a matter of waiting for that approval. We don't anticipate that being a problem, just because they have already received approval for the sports betting license, which is a similar process. So we're now just waiting on that. And then certainly the other milestone, I think, here in the near future is going to be the closing on the property by Rush Street Gaming.
So after the closing, will they have an official groundbreaking?
Yes,
Okay.
that is the plan.
Okay.
So time frame wise, we're hoping that'll be sometime in the September, October time frame. Couldn't tell you for sure. And that's because again, we're hoping to close in that time frame. But yes, there'll be a groundbreaking at that point. Again, hoping to go vertical in October. And then from that standpoint, next it'll be open. And again, this is slated for, the attempt is for late 2022, at the latest early 2023. Any other questions?
And let me add to some positive news as reference to minority recruitment as far as contractors and businesses. Early on, I was received in my travels from various minority business owners about how to get in touch and how to get on the list. And, so Rush Street provided the a direct telephone number into them, and they did follow up, and they of course, you remember they've had a couple of conferences, what do you call them, workshops, when they got together. But they
Information sessions.
Information sessions, and SB Ballard is the general contractor there, and they also have solicited and hired some more minority businesses. I know one in particular, young man called me early on, and I put him in touch, and I saw him at a function, and he said that he had received a contract, he's in an engineering firm that does soil testing and other kinds of site testing, and he has been hired, by SB Ballard to work, and there's a couple of other businesses too that have already been contacted. So So that's something that we have to monitor to contractually to make sure that they're in compliance with that. We're going to do that as well.
And to piggyback off of that, one thing I will say is that Rush Street, when you reach out, if you go to their website, which is riverscasinoportsmouth.com, they have all the contact portals for individuals to be vendors, to be contractors, to sign up for employment opportunities, so forth. They reach back out to you. So it's not just an empty portal where you put your email in and you don't hear anything again. Nope, they respond back and then they keep you updated because, again, there was a contractor's information session. There will be a vendor fair and information session coming up early next year. Because I mean, you're going to have everything from, who's going to supply dough for the pizza, who's going to do all those different things. So this is not something that's done in a vacuum. They are, again, out here making sure that individuals know that they are soliciting as much minority contracting and as much Portsmouth minority contracting as possible. So we're very excited about our partner and where we are. So, but if you have any questions, comments, don't hesitate to reach out to staff, but at the same time, certainly you can reach out directly to Rush Street via their website. Yes, ma'am.
There is an information session this morning at 10. I'll be excusing myself. They will be doing an information session with the City of Portsmouth Procurement Office as well. So that's taking place today. And they had an outreach event last Tuesday at Thomas Nelson, on Thomas Nelson's campus. So there are active events happening all the way through fruition of the project. Sorry.
And I'll add for Manager Jones's benefit, this young man said the city is also contracted with him as a part of this. The city's part in the casino construction. So that's very positive. We just want to make sure that we see more of that. I think the contract calls for a certain percentage, but we would love to see that exceeded.
Who's monitoring that? Is that the city's response? I know we had some
Yeah, we
discussion.
talked about
Yeah.
that, and I think we talked to Ms. Chrome about, yeah.
So
about
Ms.
that.
Crone is monitoring that, along with on Rush Street side, it's going to be SP Ballard and Delcino Miles will be the one disseminating that information as it happens.
Yeah, and it's, I guess, our hopes to report out, at
Right.
intervals.
Yes.
Yeah, because I've even passed information along to, in that respect, to Delcino also, and she's hired some Portsmouth persons to work along with her as well.
And what I would tell you is look at the some of the updates that you'll receive on the newsletter. We'll have that information as well. We've spoken to her about that. So we're looking to have some of that information on the newsletter as well to keep everyone abreast of where we are. So yes, that kind of goes back to what Mr. Mitchell was saying, which is the milestones, not just on the project coming to fruition, but where we are from a standpoint of minority investment. So, but we're excited.
That financial piece is a tall order, though. Everybody knows it's going to take about $5 million to invest in that. There are a couple of individuals in Portsmouth that are going to do it. So I know a couple of them personally, and they're working on that. Then there's some groups of individuals that are trying to pull together to do it too. So it's not out of reach for everybody.
Yeah. All right. Next item on the agenda, last item of old business, is our business investment program. And I'm going to turn this over to Vice Chair Mitchell and Mr. Barber in a second, but just to kind of set up the context, if you recall, it's been the desire of this board to revamp your incentive program from a standpoint of the local incentive program. Traditionally, having a program that dealt with primarily investment into property. So from a standpoint of interior improvements, exterior improvements, signage, and security. Staff has been working with the ad hoc committee to really come up with what we feel like is a robust, but at the same time targeted program. And you have a copy of that, of the draft in front of you. And again, we talked about it last week, handed it out last week, and we're hoping to get some responses, and I'm hoping they have. But that's just kind of setting the table. And I will turn it over now to Mr. Barber, or Mr. Barber's calling Mr. Mitchell. So I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Mitchell to talk about programs.
Well, again, we're still excited about it. We made some minor changes based on last month's meeting, particularly around the grant awards. I think we're on the final lap here, and it looks good. One of the good things I can say with COVID is that you're able to see EDAs live across the state of Virginia. And sometimes I will just listen to some of their sessions. I got to tell you, this is probably the most robust program that I've seen so far. So I think it's a credit to everybody who was involved with it and the challenges and changes that we made. So I'm really, really excited about what it's going to do for us.
Mr. Barber, do you want to add anything to it?
Amen to what he just said.
So I think that the best way to handle this is to open it up, see if there's any questions, comments, concerns regarding the program, and let me kind of, or I'll yield to the board if you all want to kind of sum up each program so that everyone has or understands.
Okay, I can. There's three basic programs. One is for startup and emerging companies that are less than 3 years of age. There's what we call a business accelerator program for small companies that are just getting off the ground and need a little help to go to that next step. And that's for companies in the 3 to 7 years of age. And then there's a revamp of our real estate improvement program, which combines all three of our existing programs into a single real estate grant. The first one, in terms of the startup program, basically is a $2,000 grant. Doesn't require a match, but it does require that the business go through a business training program and develop a business plan that is adequate to the staff, and then they would receive the $2,000. The business accelerator program is basically a $5,000 grant, requires a 20% match. And again, is for small businesses less than 10 employees there, and can be used basically for marketing in there, but not operational type of expenses. And then the real estate improvement grant is up to $25,000 and covers both interior and exterior improvement and site improvements, with some limitations on the amount for various types of categories of site improvement. So that's a fairly high level overview of the grant program. Instead, may want to add to that.
Yeah, I think what we've done is we've tried to make sure we incorporated everything that the board has been talking about for the last couple of years, especially the desire to assist small businesses. So we are focusing on businesses 7 years and less in place. The thought process is because those businesses in that time frame, that's when they need the most help and the most work. So again, we have the business development grant, which is going to be for companies that are 3 years or less. And that's, again, more of those startups. And that the reason being is because during that 0 to 3 years, the only thing that they're really eligible for typically is some type of SBA loan. And most of those folks aren't ready to take on that responsibility just yet. So this is a $2,000 grant that goes to individuals once they complete a kind of business boot camp, if you will, through our office. We did open it up for the opportunity. So if someone did go through something maybe at a TCC or a Paul DeCamp or a Thomas Nelson or a similar program, there's an opportunity there, but they have to prove that that was done. And they also have to sit down with one of our colleagues, whether it's with SCORE, whether it's SBA, SBDC, to come up with a loan-ready business plan. And upon approval of that or obtaining that, essentially they can receive $2,000. Yes, sir, Mr. Brown.
Yeah, I had a question. of requiring them to go through a business boot camp? If they've already been operating business for 3 years, which is the maximum amount of time they could be in business for the small business program, you think that's a frivolous step to have them come to a training program if they've already been operating?
We talked about that, and we don't think it's a frivolous step because, to use your term, because we feel like the big thing that they're going to come out with at the end of that program is that loan ready business plan. They may have a business plan, but most startups don't have a loan ready where I can go to Town Bank or any other bank and say, I've got something solidified, looked at by one of the professionals to say, hey, we've got this done. And that's their skin in the game, ultimately, to get this money. And they may have been in business, like you said, up to 3 years. This is a way for them, put some time in. They may learn to revamp something that they're doing and do it better and make them even more successful. And again, it's free. Keep in mind, all the services that are here for our Portsmouth businesses are free. So the only thing they're giving up is time to get $2,000.
And what's the amount of time that they're giving up to get to $2,000?
So it is.
The amount is low, in my opinion, for business startup. I'm just expressing personal opinions. The amount is low, but what's the amount of time they have to commit to get the $2,000?
So at the most, it's a self-paced program. So at the most, it could be 8 weeks, but that's depending on if you take all of that time. But I mean, you could take it in as little as how much, Ms. Carter?
So the actual boot camp is 9 hours. And it's spread out over time. The individual does have the ability to do the 9 hours all at once, but they miss those components of the expertise of the different subject topics.
I think it should be, I mean, and it's just personal opinion, but I think it should be if they require it, not mandatory, but if they require it. Because this is like I was telling you with the bank situation. I recently took 2 people that were starting new businesses to Town Bank to try to open an account. And Town Bank required them to have this frivolous document that no other bank required them to have. The young lady was trying to deposit $16,000. The young man was trying to deposit over $100,000. And because of that one step, they went to a different organization and got taken care of there. So if it's something that they need, offer it to them. But if it's something that they don't need, don't make it don't make it more effort to get the grant, is what I'm saying.
I got you.
So each small business, if they exist, go through an assessment process. We're not making anyone go through a frivolous process. It is evaluating where they are and what their needs are. For the most part, anyone under 3 years.
And that's in the loan part of it, right? In the application part of it, you gather that information when they apply for it, right?
When they come in for their orientation for the program.
And I was saying, I can tell you that when we were looking at businesses for the CARES Act, even though they had been in business for a long time, a lot of them didn't even have the basic things they needed to be able to apply for just something as simple as that. But I do agree that, like you said, through the process, if they have this, they have some, sure it could be a check-off process, for the things they do have. But don't assume they've been in business a long time, that a lot of them don't.
Right. So I understand each business operates differently. Each business owner is going to have a different level of knowledge, skills, and abilities. So if that business owner knows how to operate his business and doesn't need to go to a business boot camp, but just need a $2,000 boost for his business, why require him to do that?
I think you got to have something tangible. This is just from a staff standpoint. They've got to have something tangible as to what was done to get that money. So if nothing else, they end up again sitting down with SBA, SCORE, someone to obtain that loan ready business plan. On average, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's some outliers out there, but on average, they've been in business less than 3 years. It's not, they may feel that they're successful, don't get me wrong, but what you have is an opportunity to make sure for free that you are, after the assessment, where you need to be to, again, be loan ready. Because there's a difference. You can be successful in working through your process, but you may not have all the things in place to go and walk into a bank no matter what.
And they may not need a loan. They just may need a grant.
They may not. They just may
need the grant to, you said, for startup equipment. They just may need a grant for a new laptop.
Yeah, but I think also keep in mind, we're talking city money.
Mhm.
So I think at the end of the day, we have to have something. I'll look at my finance folks, but I think you gotta have something tangible.
Yeah, I think
As you give that
when the person is completing the application to apply for the grant, all of the tangibles that you need to check off, all of the things that you need to check off could be gathered in that step. You said it's a free program, but it's 8 weeks. Time is money, so you kind of got to balance it out. Is that 8 weeks? Is that 8 weeks worth of persons worth $2,000 for that person? So I think it's just, if you make the process simpler, you'll have more participants.
I think we just heard that it's basically 8 hours, not 8 weeks.
Right.
Yeah.
But again, that's all over.
That's a relatively minimal investment for,
Yeah.
for the help that you'll be getting, one, to support your business, and two, for the $2,000.
And this is about accountability. There's so many people fly by that night, fly by day. Everybody wants to be in business for themselves, and that's all it is. I don't. Does any other board members have any issues?
I do. I don't have an issue with it. I'm going to say, and this is from someone I'm starting my own business with my sister, and the time we're taking, I mean, I'm actually going to be doing the program. But even from someone like, I was in the hotel business for 30 years. I still made my managers and myself, we went back to the basics every single year. And that's how I see this, because also things change. So someone could have started 4 businesses in the last 20 years. Well, things change in business and in the community every single year. So they're just getting an update on it. So I agree that the 9 hours is more than worth it. And it's also the accountability part. But I think that enough education and all
the 9
that
hours is not a problem. If 9 hours is, if your time is worth 9 hours, if 9 hours of your time is worth $2,000, then 9 hours is not an issue. It's a great program. Don't get me wrong. It's a great program, but simplify it for people to be able to participate in it is my suggestion, is my recommendation. Look at it, be able to simplify it. Maybe recommend more than the $2,000 because that is a low amount, but
Any other commissioners? Yeah.
Well, I just wanted to make mention that one of the things that I see as well is also a learning opportunity. Over the past couple of months, we've been working with a lot of organizations around the community that don't even understand what it takes to get to that point. And the connections, the communication, the understanding of business. I totally understand what you're saying, because you just want to make sure that it doesn't deter.
right.
I understand. But for those who are looking for $2,000 versus an experience, they'll go somewhere else. But for the ones who want the experience for the longevity of being in business, they're going to welcome this program. Because one thing that I do hear is a lot of people say what they think, I wonder, or if, and they don't take the opportunity to read. This is our opportunity to give them the resources to understand where that information comes from. And maybe with the success of the program, economic development, your organization will be able to look at it and say, we can raise the bar. But the initial presentation, the initial commitment is what I believe they're looking for here. Because if you're willing to do that, then you're willing to look at the next grant. You're willing to go out and you can now be prepared for those bigger grants. A lot of people miss those opportunities because they just don't know what to do. But I do. I feel your pain. I do.
It's just a concern because a lot of people don't need it. And some people, and it's like, to offer it to people who don't need it is like just a feather in our hat, a notch on our belt. Just to say we gave it to, we met these numbers. But if a man has a master's of business, an MBA, and needs a $2,000 grant for a small business that he's setting up, I doubt he's gonna learn anything from a boot camp, a business boot camp.
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
With that. I mean, but that's just my opinion.
Yeah, we
You
can
know,
disagree.
we can agree to disagree.
Yeah.
I'm okay.
And that's why we're having this conversation. I mean, we want everyone to understand. And I certainly understand. The One of the main things behind this entire program, and we're calling this right now the Business Investment Program, is to attempt to remove barriers. Okay. And, you know, again, I agree with Ms. Terry, and I agree with you. We want to make sure these are as few barriers as possible. There's got to be skin in the game. Certainly there's the assessment. Certainly there's the kind of check off and see who has what, when, and why. But for the most part, what we've seen, data has shown that 0 to 3 is pivotal. That 3 to 7 is pivotal from an acceleration standpoint. And also because of COVID. I mean, you've seen small businesses that have opened up in the last year, 2 years, that have disappeared. And that's because they'll tell you their answer is, well, you know, you just shouldn't have opened right before COVID. You didn't know that was coming. I mean, it happened. But that's part of this, so that if they were to pivot to something else, you got an opportunity.
Right. What I'll say, and just to kind of, so I won't drag this through, going through this program will allow them to be able to meet those criteria that you just mentioned when they went to Town Bank. Because if they, even though they've been in business, they might, that one little piece that they did not have or know could have corrected that whole situation. And to give money to me says, and we say this, and I hear it all the time, if I give you a fish, you'll eat for the day, but if I teach you how to fish, you'll be able to eat for a lifetime. So if I can prepare you for every opportunity, Town Bank, BB&T, or Truist, Bank of America, because my business is gonna soar, SBA, at that point, you're always gonna be able to be in business. And get the resources you need without feeling a concern of, I don't have everything.
And let's see how it goes. You know, we'll be monitoring this because this is new to all of us, between Mr. Donahue, Mr. Moore, and yourself. Let's keep tabs. All right.
And again, oh, sorry, the manager.
Just a question. In looking at, just quickly going through, I think they're excellent programs. Have two-part question. One, are all of them first come, first serve? And if so, how are you getting the word out to everyone and not just those in the know?
So it will be first come, first serve. This program will not go into effect, or these programs will not go into effect until January 1. So we are looking at the thought process from a milestone standpoint is we'll get this approved conceptually today, and then we'll work on the applications to bring back in September. And then we will go through a full marketing program, much like we did with our CARES Act funding, to make sure that we blast this out both from a kind of on boots on the ground level as well as social media, so that everyone knows, and through the city as well, that everyone knows these are available. I can tell you, we have probably 14 different businesses waiting in some way, shape, or form to utilize this, all for that. So it will be first come, first serve. One thing we will have to decide, or we would like you to decide this morning, is how much you will put towards each program from an EDA standpoint. But yes, we're going to come up with an actual strategy to make sure this is out, so all businesses are eligible across the city for these programs.
Yeah, one thing, our liaisons aren't here, but it's very critical and important that they understand, and I know Robert has mentioned it multiple times, how this body is one of the unique ones, and whereas we don't get money always from the council, you know, we self-sustaining, whatever we get, they allow us to keep it and use it. And we just want to continue that, especially with the proceeds that's coming from some big projects. And I know a lot of the folks and just the land value, I mean, sale, and that's where it comes from. But we just hope and pray that we will be able to continue to sustain, you know, what we're doing and add to it, as, you know, Mr. Brown has suggested too, that we can do better, you know, if we've got the continuing resources, and we don't want to, you know, throw it all in one pot, because we got a lot of it to spread around. But council members often talk about it. Folks come down there, even my days on council is, we talked about a war chest, you know, for incentives to attract businesses, you know, well, we're doing a lot of that. You know, we're doing the kinds of things, this department to attract and making it easier. And we still need to make it easier, but for the small businesses, those are the ones. The big ones, you know, they in the game and they don't even need this kind of assistance, but some of the new ones.
So, you know, business is about greed. You got businesses like the applied for pandemic loans, like football team owners that apply for EDA and pandemic loans. It's just this is basing, I guess this is with the assumption that all the businesses that apply for this grant are gonna be struggling businesses, and not just somebody who's like, there's a grant available, let me get an extra $2,000 for my business. His business may be very well operating, maybe making money every year and making a good profit every year, and just see an extra $2,000 out there that he wants to go and get. But now I got to sit in a program to get the $2,000.
Yeah, you know.
And then it might not be for that type of business owner. So
Right.
it's just like if it's a first come first served basis, then you're really gonna have to do some vetting on who gets the money, because if I'm in first and I got a raggedy business versus somebody who comes in later that has a competent business, you know, who's really benefiting.
You know, I think one, as to what the manager just asked, you know, one thing that we talked about is, so for example, when someone goes to get their business license, that's a brand new business, right? It could be a home-based business. And if the folks in Mr. Edmondson's office in our connection with them, if they say, just so you know, this is eligible, you know, I don't want to, and staff will not ever necessarily decide between, you know, a business that will work or won't work. That is the premise of this program, is to make sure that everybody is working, that everybody is doing what they need to do, because there are barriers. Again, as a business just starting out, whether you start an LLC, an incorporation, or whatever, the first 3 years, you're not going to get, somebody's not just going to give you money. You may not even get a loan, to be quite honest with you. So there is no other program like this between here and Charlottesville. There's no one else giving out any startup money to anyone. However, I do believe in order for us to do that and to be fiscally responsible, hearing exactly what you're saying, we have to have some skin. Somebody has to have some skin in the game to make this work. And not just on the 0 to 3, but on the 3 to 7 years. You've been in business 3 years, up to 7 years. It's a $1,000 match, 20%. We'll give you 5,000. You match with 1,000. Again, same thing. You might
that part was fine. That part was fine. And then I had another thing about federally surplus buildings in Portsmouth for veterans. Can we incorporate that into this program? Because if there are federally owned buildings in the city that's no longer occupied by the federal government, and it's a veterans owned business, the veteran can apply to occupy that business and use that as a workspace. So there might be something you want to consider incorporating in it as well.
In which program?
In the real estate portion of the grant program, or
so, and we can talk about that. I'll leave that up to the board members. I mean, what you have is the thought process is when you make improvements to the building, that's improving your tax assessment and the taxes. You know, there's some value to the city.
Yeah, well, maybe not in the real estate portion of it. Maybe it just needs to be added into this grant package, so it could be made aware to veterans in the community that if there's federal buildings, we can identify those buildings. And if there's a veteran that wants to occupy that building, he qualifies for it, he could move into that building.
We're kind of stepping into a
different realm. Okay.
Yeah, than what we normally are set up to do. We need to get on that level, to be honest. Teresa, you want?
Yeah, going back to our city manager question about how we're going to get it out. Business development our committee talked about in general, getting information out. And one of the things we asked for, of course, was a list of all the businesses in the city of Portsmouth. And it was our hope that as a committee, maybe we could assign ourselves to certain businesses just to visit and say, hey, is there anything you need? How are things going? You know, because sometimes you learn a lot of needs you never even thought about that the committee has. That the community has. So I think that would be a good way, you know, introducing and talking about in a new program such as this.
And we're also doing that on our side. We are in the process of hiring another individual to assist with our business retention program. So
Okay.
again, that's going out, meeting with businesses, but this will be one of those, another tool in the toolbox, if you will, to say, you know, do you need X, Y, Z? And we're not gonna do the research of how long have they been in business.
Right.
This is our grant program that the EDA offers. There may be some opportunity in there on top of enterprise zone, things of that nature. So the plan is to get this out and make sure this is out. So we use this money up, and then next year you all come back and say, let's do it again. Again, keep in mind, we're doing it January 1, so there's about a 6-month time frame from a budgeting standpoint for the fiscal year. But yes, I certainly agree. The manager had a question.
Yes, I just wanted to also point out that the city's in the process of formulating recommendations as to how we're going to spend the federal funds. And of course, a part of that is focusing on women and minority-owned businesses. So to the extent that this group can come up with a program to address that, then I would definitely be interested in submitting that forward to the council for consideration.
Supplemental.
Really?
That would be great, like if we put in 300 and the city puts in 300, like a match.
Yes,
Mhm.
Yeah.
The other
or just straight.
Just straight.
No,
Just
just
straight.
Yeah.
Okay.
That
Yeah.
I think I would be interested in presenting that.
That sounds like a retreat.
There are a couple options that just to pick up, for, you know, women and minority-owned businesses, you could increase the grant amounts. And you could adjust the matching provisions. So those are two options there. One thing that has not been discussed in my working with small businesses over the years, going through the training processes and stuff like that, a lot of times when you counsel those people, they come to the realization that their plans that they had there is really not going to make them any money.
Right.
And they decide to either alter their plans or there. So you're really providing a tremendous service to them, in providing that type of assistance in their decision-making process. I'll just give you one example. A lady had a catering business up in West Point, wanted to open up a restaurant and she was women-owned, minority business. And when we ran the numbers on the restaurant business, she was making more money doing the catering business, and that was a lifelong desire for her to do that. But she decided in the end it was not going to it would bankrupt her if she did go into the restaurant business.
Because of the overhead.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when that business plan that comes out at the end is to me the most critical piece for any business, especially if it can be loan ready. So then you understand your business better, because outside looking in, and then at the same time you are potentially eligible and ready to obtain financial assistance when that's done. That to me is the biggest piece that comes out of that training. So ultimately this morning, we'd like to get a consensus to move forward with the applications. Just some quick additional points. Again, the 3 to 7 years, both of these programs are 10 full-time employees, so full-time equivalents. So it could be part-time employees. So 2 is 1 kind of situation. So you could have up to 20 part-time. We don't want folks to be limited, but it is 10 full-time equivalents. When you start looking at the acceleration standpoint, which is the next grant, the acceleration grant, that is again for making sure that you have the ability to pivot, whether it's for marketing, so forth. But it's not just, again, hey, I'm building a new website, I need some money. It would be, I'm building a new website. Here is the plan. Here is the layout. Here's what I'm doing. Here is who's doing it, so on and so forth, invoice wise. And I'm putting up my money. More than likely, they're going to pay for it in advance anyway. And that $5,000 is ultimately a reimbursement to them. But yes, ma'am.
I was just saying, on this one, the eligible activities, it's like it was just copy and pasted, which I understand from the one before, but it's not really establishing a business here, it's growing a business.
Right.
And I know it's just a word, but maybe that could be changed to, because they're not establishing the business here,
Yes.
they're growing it.
Yes, we'll change it
Okay.
to growing, or accelerating a business.
Right.
Okay.
Good catch.
Change that. Yes, good catch. And this is, and so that you all know, we looked at this because there is this kind of, I'm blanking on the name of the program right now, Business Resurgence Grant that the state has. This is where we kind of pulled this to make sure we're staying in compliance. There's nothing out of the ordinary. The only thing that's really different is the fact that we are willing to, as a body, provide startup money for autism purposes in the amount of $2,000. So,
You were suggesting earlier that we set some, financing for each of these different.
Yes, sir.
Amount of money that would be allocated to each of the different programs.
yes, sir. So, and I'll quickly touch on the business, the property investment grant program. Just as a reminder, previously you all had a program, or the program that you all had was a maximum of $25,000 matching grant for exterior improvements, a matching grant in the same amount for interior improvements of $25,000. So someone could get $50,000 ultimately. Then also they could receive another $2,000 for security, like cameras, things of that nature. We've always talked about this. If you look at it that way, you're helping 6 businesses potentially. That's not a lot. The average award, however, when we looked at it, total was about $25,000. It was really the average per program was about $12,400. So staff decided in concert with the ad hoc committee that the maximum you can receive is $25,000. And in that $25,000, you can do interior, exterior, you can do security up to $2,500 and signage up to $2,500. We do one application, keep it simple, okay? I bring that up and to transition to say, from a monetary standpoint, staff's recommendation is that you keep the $300,000 that you typically would for the local incentive program. So again, instead of helping 6 businesses, you potentially could help 12, or really you could almost do 24 based off average. Put $100,000 towards the startup program and another $100,000 towards the acceleration program for a total of $500,000.
I'm not, I agree with the $300,000, and I guess the discussion that I was looking at between 25 and 40 participants in the startup program as being a target number. And that would be somewhere between probably $50,000 and $80,000 there. And then in the participants in the accelerator program, if you're looking at 20 to 30, that you're looking at between $100,000 and $150,000 there.
Right.
Yeah, but it's close.
Economic development, we'll round up all day. So that's to be clear. So we thought that was based off what you budgeted, I believe, for incentive programs
That's fine.
was 500. That's what we figured we'd leave it at that. And keep in mind, this is only for, really, it's only going to be for 6 months until your next budget cycle. So, but I will tell you, we don't think that money is going to last long, which is a good problem to have. But let's see how it goes, and then we can adjust as necessary. But that's staff recommendation.
So do we, I know we've rode this horse quite a bit of time here,
Yes,
which is necessary, all the points.
yes.
But basically, can we get a consensus to move forward with it, understanding that, it's a work in progress as well? Can we move? Just everybody? Mr. Brown, you?
Sure.
Okay, all right. So, and we'll be revisiting and tweaking and coming back to talk to this, and the game plan as set out, is what we'll go by. Okay. Okay. Thank you all, committee, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Barber.
Great job.
Yeah, awesome job. And it's good to have you folks here. Ms. Terry sitting down there, Ms. Phillips, and the city manager.
Still,
I'm gonna say that now while I'm thinking about it.
So Chair, the next item is actually new business, and this is again to piggyback off of the what we have, right? What we were just talking about, and touches on something that you stated earlier. Certainly, you all have a program or are looking to establish a program that assists the startups and the small businesses. What you do not have at this point is a program officially that should that white whale come in and the desire to give an incentive, you all do not have a set program and parameters to do that. So what we would like to do is we would ask the board to establish economic development incentive program ad hoc committee to evaluate, is something like that needed? If it is needed, what would that look like, and report back with potential opportunities for that. Again, like you stated, you all as a body do not receive an appropriation from council, but there may be those times where you decide, you know, you do want to provide that larger incentive, and you really need something formalized in order to make that official.
Yeah, and this is excellent, because you heard me say also a little few minutes ago how council struggles to set aside this types of funds for, you know, new businesses and to attract and, you know, to even offer proffers and things like that. I don't believe they have a mechanism for that now, to my knowledge. So this will also justify our need to them to keep, you know, the additional funds that come our way, because this is a goals and objectives that we have that will best utilize those extra funds, you know. Now, I'm not talking about money that would go towards reducing the tax, which needs to happen too, but we all know how that goes right now. But at least some incentives to attract, you know, we will be in a position to go after some of the whales and the bigger fish if we had a way to do that, and the word gets around. So
Well, this sounds so similar to the goals of the Business Development Committee, ad hoc committee that we already have.
You mean the one that we just talked about?
No, the business that Kathy and I.
Oh, yeah, well, it is sort of kind of formalized.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
I think this is important, that what we're doing, because our competitors have
Right.
incentives, and we've been sitting out there for so long without these incentives, and they know that. So I'm sure it's impacted the city with them not even looking at us to start with, because they know that we're not going to bring anything to the table. And secondly, I think in listening to city council meetings for especially the past year, I hear too often, well, businesses will come to us because of our waterfront. No, they won't. Because, and I think that's important. I think every time I hear that said, I just cringe, because I think, no, do you know how many waterfronts there are? Danville has a great waterfront, the riverfront. I mean, there's so many riverfronts and waterfronts, you know, yeah, ours is gorgeous. I love it, but everybody else has a waterfront too. So they're not just going to come because of that. And I think it's important that we realize that, and we have, you know, in play to be a player.
Yeah.
I'm thinking when they say businesses will come because of the waterfront, it's because they mean we have shipping ports here, not because we have like a visual waterfront that's something to look at, but because we have a functional waterfront where ships can come in. We have a big port over there with docks coming in. We can handle a lot of freight and traffic in the city. I think that's what they meant. With my perception about waterfront, that's an incentive.
I don't think that's the case with the folks that you hear going to council and talking and complaining. They not talking about that. They don't know nothing about.
Well, that's my conception. We got a big shipping port. We got a big terminal over here. We can handle a lot of traffic. So that's an incentive for businesses to come, not because we have a jail on the waterfront.
Yeah, they talking about activities.
Right.
They talking about events They talking about.
I'm talking
functions.
about infrastructure,
Yeah,
like
you
shipping
you
and
at a
transportation.
way higher level than that thought pattern. You way.
Right. And there's just so many just general services that we go out inside the city
Yeah.
for that we need,
Yeah.
that we need to track here.
Right.
Like, what are
Most
some of the
definitely.
incentives that other cities are offering to attract businesses?
So what, and this is, I think, a discussion as we go into this process, but what you have, let me first start by saying an incentive does not make a bad deal good in no way, shape, or form. Okay. What it does is really an incentive should ultimately fill a gap from a cost standpoint. So I'll give you an example. You may have a building, when you start talking about industrial waterfront and so forth, you may have a building that is a great size building, but the ceiling is too low. So that incentive could offset the cost of increasing the height of that ceiling, for example. They're going to have to do it, but there is an opportunity for some participation from the locality to assist in that. There's other incentives, you know, maybe there's a job creation grant. So if folks come in with a certain number of jobs, and certainly any program you have needs to be based off of capital investment and job creation. Let me be clear, but there's got to be some thresholds on that. But, you know, there are all different types. What I would tell you is this board or this group that's put together, along with staff, will do the due diligence to see what other localities have done. Other localities here in the region do this. Chesapeake has a program. Virginia Beach has a program. Now, I will tell you again, that program is set aside money based off of the cigarette tax. They get a portion of the cigarette tax, for example. We're not asking for that. What we are saying is the EDA is at a position right now, which they have not been in several years, to be able to potentially provide additional incentives. And as we go through, and, you know, we landed Frito-Lay. No incentives, right? Nothing from the city, but that's not always going to happen kind of situation. I'm just going to say they liked us, but at the end of the day, I think we've got to have something formalized, even if we have to match, for example, a state program.
That's why I asked you what incentives other cities are offering, so we could have an opportunity to match their incentives and not just, you know.
Yeah, but again, one thing we should be careful of. We don't want to get into a contest of who throws the most money at a project.
Right.
So it's not for, and I get what you're saying. I hear exactly what you're saying. It's I think the best due diligence going forward with this group and staff is analyzing that there is a program out there. They have set parameters, and it's not just I like that group, so I'm gonna give them some money. It's got to be some set parameters. We can look at their parameters, and but I can tell you, not every locality uses the same formula to decide on their incentives.
Right, they can't because they have to factor in different features. Because if we ship directly to Portsmouth, but my location is in Chesapeake, then I have to factor in different.
Right, you got
different
trades,
things.
you got all different things. So yes, so I think what we do is not to take up too much time, Chair, but what we'll do is we'll work with the board or work with the ad hoc committee to come back with those examples, and then have a further discussion at a later meeting about how this could work. Should you decide to do it, you may decide you like what you're doing right now, and just let's leave it at that. But I think you have to go through that exercise of formalizing something.
Yeah, and one thing to answer your question, you heard me advocate clearing land. That's a big expense, especially for a large parcel. What businesses want is user ready land.
Right.
Even if
that's a good incentive. I see where you're going with that.
Exactly. Even if infrastructure was out there, curbing and gutter infrastructure underground, all of that's incentives. That's the kind of things that other cities do to answer your question. But what we can do, I felt, that's not going to cost us a lot, is just clear the land so that anybody riding around can just see how much property is out there, and, you know, and that it's level and flat and what's around it. Because a lot of our parcels are like, you know, the Amazon rainforest. And so if we can, let's just do that piece, that'll go a long ways to making it catch attention.
I agree.
So we'll come back with that at a later meeting. But who is the ad hoc?
It's Mr. Mitchell, again, Mr. Mitchell and Ms. Barbara Smith. And she's aware and she consented, so, from wherever she was. She did tell me, but I didn't remember. So,
All right,
all right,
we do have a need to go in closed session.
okay, all right. And I've listed too, a couple of these items, the one that the manager brought up, Ms. Jones, about the federal grant money and also this incentive program. These are two items that we can discuss further at the retreat. Malcolm, those can be my submittals.
Okay.
You want me to formalize it like everybody else?
Yes, I do.
No problem. I
No
knew you
special
would say
treatment
that.
because you are the chair.
I knew you would say that.
So we do have a need to go in closed session.
Ready?
Yes.
I move to go into a closed meeting pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 2.2-3711A.11 for the purpose of discussing the investment of public funds where competition or bargaining is involved, where if made public initially, the financial interest of the EDA would be adversely affected, specifically regarding 3315 High Street and 1117 and 1121 High Street. And two, pursuant to Virginia Code subsection 22.2-3711A.3 for the purpose of discussing the acquisition or disposition of real property where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position or negotiating strategy of the public body, specifically regarding EDA's property acquisition strategy and the Victory Entertainment District property.
Need a second.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Barber. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, Mr. Barber,
Yes.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
All right, we are in closed session. Yeah, only one that don't. Staff, please stay in because of the discussion.
Very good.
This conference will now be recorded.
I hereby move that each commissioner certify that to the best of his or her knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under the Virginia Freedom of Information Act, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard, discussed, or considered in the closed meeting just concluded.
Second. Thank you, Mr. Barber. Any discussion of the motion? Okay, Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
Chairman Smith.
Yes.
Okay, back in open session. The item that we have before us in open session is the approval of the grant for 3315 High Street. And again, we need to make sure that includes the extension as well.
So move.
Second.
Is that good for you?
Judge specify the amount of time for the extension for the grant.
Okay,
90 days.
and that was seconded by
Second.
Brian. Any discussion? Okay, Mr. Barber,
Aye.
Ms. Drury,
Yes.
Mr. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
Mrs. Saunders Smith,
Yes.
and Chairman Smith.
Yes.
All right, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is items submitted by board members. Any items you all want to submit? I would ask that, again, if you are submitting items for the retreat, to forward those to Mr. Mitchell.
No, I think we're good.
All right.
The only thing I would ask is the subcommittee on the incentives to take a look at the opportunity, possibly opportunity zones, and setting up an opportunity zone fund as a possible incentive possibility.
Oh, you want to email that to Mr. Malcolm?
I can do that.
Okay.
There you go.
But that's more for staff.
There we go. But staff has noted that request. Report backs, next item. We will, the question was asked about the speakers for the retreat. We have 4 speakers. We will send those out to you. We're still finalizing and making sure from a schedule standpoint, everyone is good. Because at one point, the country opened back up from a travel standpoint. Now we're not traveling sort of again. We're just verifying schedules, but we do have four speakers scheduled. One to speak specifically to the industrial market, one to speak to office, one to speak to retail, and then another to speak from a development standpoint, just on overall how does Portsmouth compare to the other localities in the region. So we're very excited about these folks. These are all brokers from different groups. One's from SL Nussbaum, one's from Harvey Lindsay, one's from DeVaris, and then one's from Tallheimer Cushman Wakefield. So no bias.
Robert, is any of those familiar with sort of the changing dynamics of distribution logistics?
Yes, sir. So Mr. Jeff Poston is one of the speakers, for example. And we tried to make sure we dealt with individuals that deal in Portsmouth. So not somebody just coming out off the cuff. But yes, that and myself and Mr. Donahue just came back from the logistics forum in Colorado. And we were very well received. We sponsored the event. It was 2.5 days of nothing but that whole, logistics, distribution, supply chain, so forth. And I don't like using the phrase strategically positioned because no one just decides, but we are primed and we are in a great position when it comes to our location on the East Coast and our partners with the port. So when you start talking about logistics and things, we are primed for that. But yes, Mr. Poston will speak to that. And we'll send out the list of those speakers with the agenda.
And our Let's Talk Business for September will also focus on distribution and logistics.
Yeah.
That'll be September 3rd.
That's the marketing person. Yes. Yes, but it will be focused on that because we came back from Colorado with all this information. So that's a good plug to talk about where we are, what we're doing, and how we're taking advantage of that. So yes. All right, and then the last item on the agenda, as far as report backs, we did send this out already, but were all the links that you all requested. What we will send out to you, however, are the digital files for these maps here. We will also have the map updated for the Opportunity Zone, and we'll have that up. These same maps will be up at the retreat, and so we're going to set the retreat up a little different. And I'm actually looking at a different word for retreat because we're not retreating, we're actually moving forward. Okay, so kind of try to get away from retreat. But we are going to look at rearranging the room slightly. So when you have your meeting next month, the table will be set like this, but then we're going to take a slight break and rearrange the room so there are more pods, 2 tables together, 4 people at a table, so we can get some real discussions and some SWOT analysis on and have some conversations. So we're excited about those. And those, again, will be you all, PPIC, and staff. All right. All right. Next meeting is, again, September 21st. I appreciate you all being here. I think this is the longest meeting we've had since the casino discussion. Appreciate the manager being here for this long. Miss Terry and Miss Phillips. So I don't have anything else, Chair.
Yeah, and just not to belabor, but again, thank Ms. Terry and the manager for hanging in with us today. It's very important, and we have lots of expectations for you.
I have expectations for you too. She's not playing.
That was good. That said a lot about you. That was very good. Thank you. We'll be waiting.
Okay, thank you.
But again, thanks everyone, and of course always staff for keeping us on track and keeping things in the road, and hopefully we can all bring it together. There are things beyond our control when you start looking above us and who should be running and controlling things, hopefully that'll can come together somehow, somewhere, some place. But thanks again for everyone. And again, if anyone has any last parting shots, always open for that. Any, I'm not gonna say all minds are clear, even though I always say I'm not gonna say that. Okay, so thanks again, and everybody have a great day. Meeting adjourned.
Thank you. Great meeting.